Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a fantastic start to your week. Hope that the end of the Premier League first portion of the season has not brought your mood down too much. Although I have to admit it's still coming to terms with 6 weeks without Arsenal. I say 6 weeks without Arsenal. We're going to have plenty of Arsenal still with friendly matches going on and transfer news to discuss. But when you're top of the table, and it's going to be great being top of the table for the next 6+ weeks, but you kind of just want to push forwards. So yeah, it's still certainly I'm coming to terms with the lack of Arsenal's Premier League action. However, with the World Cup starting on Sunday, and apologies for those of you that I rather made the mistake of saying it was Friday. For some reason, I had it in my head it was Friday, but Sunday is when it begins. At least we'll have some daily action to get our teeth sunk into and talking about as well. So, looking certainly forward to seeing what Arsenal's players and potential transfer targets do whilst there. Good morning, everybody in the chat box joining us live on the show. You can watch these shows, of course, first on YouTube. Matt G, good morning to you. To Paul and Blackshine and Carl. Good morning to PJ and Stephen and Dave and Stevie. Good morning to Olu and the Ethiopian. Mystery Arsenal. We've got Red Star, Vivian. We've got Christopher J. We've got Harrison. We've got Mark. And we've got Martin and plenty more of you guys as well. Hope you're having a fantastic start to your week. Let's kick on. The signed Mykhaylo Saka football, which was framed, is now sold out. So best of luck to everybody that entered the competition on football prizes. If you want to get involved in any other competitions, there's lots of others that aren't Arsenal related on the website as well. Go to the link in the description and you can find out plenty more about that. Arsenal's under-21s beat Monaco yesterday in the Premier League International Cup. Really good win for them. And Catalin Kurjan got on the score sheet in the 2-1 victory. Ethan Nwaneri, of course, was on the bench as well and I believe came on in the second half. So a good win there. And there's plenty more Arsenal under-21 games going across the period that we are away from Premier League action. And we'll make sure to bring you continuous updates on how they're getting on, as well as the women's team as well. The Emirates Stadium has begun its renovations. You can see from the outside that the Legends plaque that has adorned the outside corners of the ground has now been taken down. What will be put in its place? We don't know as of yet. We don't know what will be in there. But of course, as soon as we get any updates upon what exactly is going to be there, we will bring and show you those images as soon as possible. If I get any info on this, I'll also try and let you know. But I look forward to seeing, hopefully, a renovated and more clean-looking stadium than the one that started the season. It would be quite nice to be playing in a renovated, refurbed stadium somewhat in a season that who knows what Arsenal can achieve. England's numbers have been revealed, in which Aaron Ramsdale has been given the number 23 shirt. Bukayo Saka has the number 17 and Ben White has been given the number 21. I don't know how these numbers will impact the players' potential starting places in the team, but it makes me feel a little bit uneasy when I see Harry Maguire given a single digit in this side as well. Not particularly confident in England's chances this World Cup, but seeing the numbers come out has only made that fear even worse. But let's see if that changes between now and the start of maybe the knockout rounds if we get through it. Thomas Partey has been included in the Black Stars squads for the Ghana's team for World Cup 2022, as expected. They could yet leave the competition in the group stage because they have got a bit of a tricky group to try and navigate. I actually did a piece on Football London yesterday discussing the earliest possible return dates for Arsenal's players, in which they could indeed return even before the friendly against what is said to be potentially Barcelona. On the 9th of December, we could expect to see Matt Turner, Aaron Ramsdale, Ben White, Bukayo Saka all come back if they are knocked out in the group stage. This goes for all the nations if they are indeed not making it through to the knockout round. On December 10th, you could see William Saliba come back. December 11th, Takahiro Tomiyasu. And December 12th, Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli, if indeed their respective nations don't get through the groups. They would then have a period of time off. Players have been given 10 days that aren't attending the World Cup. And so potentially the players that when they finish their World Cup duties could also be given 10 days. However, with the World Cup final being on the 18th and Arsenal's next Premier League game being on the 26th, Arsenal may indeed want players, if they make it to the final, to return before that. We'd have to wait and see whether or not those participating in the World Cup final, if they make it, would indeed be part of the squad for the 26th. It might be down to the players' discrepancy or discretion if they want to stay on a break and miss that game, or if they want to return earlier. Fabio Vieira has joined up with Portugal's under-21s. As I said, there are a number of under-21s games going on, friendlies and such, so there may be some extra info on fixtures that we can update you with as well. But he wasn't called up to the Portuguese senior side, but is training with the under-21 Portuguese side before going and joining the Arsenal first team on a potential friendly over that warm weather training camp. Now, Zinchenko is set to take part in a Legends game, which is very interesting. Some of the players are using their time off to continue playing football. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that he doesn't get injured. Now, Zinchenko is not the only Zinchenko, Oleksandr, I should say, is not the only Zinchenko that's been doing some good deeds for Arsenal, because his wife has had an interview with the one and only Mykhaylo Mudryk. A very, very interesting interview, actually, talking specifically about his chances of playing for Arsenal in the future. We're going to read you through some of the quotes in full. And how he's spoken about Arsenal was very interesting indeed. So he was asked on which teams are playing nice football this season, and he said Napoli, they're playing really well at the moment with some great players, Bayern, City and Arsenal. He was asked, do you follow Arsenal closely? To which he said, yeah, I check on them in my score. I know when they're playing and I can check on them. He also said, I also watch Arsenal too. Arsenal are a very dynamic side in general, not just controlling possession, but also scoring goals. From a purely theoretical fantasy perspective, if there was the option of being a bench player for Real Madrid or a starter for Arsenal, I'd probably choose Arsenal. It's a tough question, and it involves a lot of factors in my answer. I would first want to know from the head coach that even if I wasn't a guaranteed starter, that I'd receive a chance. Essentially, I need to hear directly from the manager what he envisages my role to be in his side to influence such a decision. He continues to talk about his next potential club, and he says the team style of play will play a decision in kind of where his head is at. It's very important to me. Zinchenko says, Vlada Sedan, says you won't be just going by the emblem on the shirt in terms of kind of their history, their reputation, etc. And he says no. Mudryk on the past summer's transfer saga, he said I spoke with 2 or 3 head coaches from interested clubs, either directly or via a translator, and they were Nice, Bayer Leverkusen and Brentford. When it didn't work out, I was a bit upset, but as we can see now, God's plan is better than my dreams. And talking about the potential of, the Arsenal fans really getting onto him, he says, one surprise for me was how many Arsenal fans followed me. No other club's fans have interacted as much as they have, telling me as they are waiting for me, saying, come to us. One of my recent posts has over 500 comments saying that. You can't underestimate the power of Arsenal supporters. You really can't. They are a force unto their own. Mudryk says it's been pleasant to receive such comments and DMs from Arsenal fans, and that it motivates him as a footballer. Vlada says, does the prospect of playing on the same wing as Zinchenko, playing with another Ukrainian, encourage me? And Mudryk says, yes, it does. Vlada says, will you be upset if you don't get a move in the winter? And after a long pause, Mudryk said, yes. Now, if you haven't yet watched the interview, you can go and watch it. Zoya Londonsk has tweeted out all the quotes on Twitter. You just at Zoya Londonsk on Twitter. You can find it there. Andrew Todos is the guy who runs that account and helped us out actually with the Zinchenko tactical breakdown. So you can go and find all the quotes there and the video. And at the end of the video, Vlada says, basically, go on Gunners, trying to encourage Arsenal to get the deal done for Mudryk. Really, really interesting interview. You can read back through all the quotes that I've butchered with my own reading through of them myself. So go back and give them a read. Very interesting interview indeed. Let's see what happens with Mudryk and Arsenal in January. And lastly, Sport in Spain have written an article in which they discuss the idea of Barcelona potentially going and signing Yuri Tielemans. Now, this is important because in the article, it talks about Arsenal's own interest in the player. In fact, what they discuss is, say, Barca, in any case, will have competition if it definitively decides to incorporate Tielemans into the squad. Since Arsenal has decided to bid heavily on the player, who is liking of its coach, Mikel Arteta, it's going to be tricky. So Barca are going to find serious competition from Arsenal if they do indeed try to bid hard for Yuri Tielemans, as Barca are looking at him as a potential free deal in the summer. And of course, whilst Arsenal can't sign a pre-contract agreement with Arsenal, he could sign a pre-contract agreement with Barcelona because they're obviously a team abroad. You can only sign pre-contract agreements with teams abroad. So there you go. I will send a link. A few of you are asking for a link to all of the quotes. So I will just put a link for you now in the chat box. There you go. And that completes part one. And I mean, I'm very happy with hearing the Mudryk interview in particular. You know, it's very, very strong to hear the words of Mykhaylo Mudryk and talk about Arsenal. He is a very, very good player, and I think would add so much quality to the Arsenal front line. And I think that you yourselves could add so much quality to the security and safety of how you travel and experience the internet by using NordVPN, who are a fantastic VPN service to provide you that safety and security whilst you are indeed online. It also enables you to change your geolocation so that if you happen to be abroad and want to use your typical broadcasting apps that only work whilst you're home, you can change your geolocation and it enables you to watch those apps without a problem. And not only can you do all of that, but you can do it at an affordable price thanks to NordVPN's sponsorship of the Gooner Talk by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner. You can get yourself 4 months free on a subscription package with a massive discount on top of that. And if you aren't happy with the service, you can get a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. Once again, a massive thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring the channel. Hope you get involved with their latest offer if you haven't done so already. And thank you to everybody that has been sending the kind messages to the channel as well. But that's nordvpn.com/Gooner. Make sure you get involved with that. Let's go to part two right after this. Okay, first of all, we've got to go to Red Star's rating of my advert transition. Not forced, flowed well, 9 out of 10. Well, let's see if we can get a 10 out of 10 tomorrow. Come back to make sure to see if I've come up with any better way. I don't plan these. I do try and do them off the cuff. So these are never planned in how I'm going to smoothly transition into the advert. So you have to bear with. There's always going to be a little bit of where my brain's going, how can I suddenly talk about NordVPN off the back of this last story? So I hope you're appreciating the smooth transitions. Anyway, let's go into the chat box and answer some of your questions. Dave says, a lot of Mudryk's compilations show him bursting past players on the counter. We don't play like that, so would he fit into our style of play? Yes, I think he still would. I also think that we need that speed and pace. And you look at someone like Gabriel Martinelli, whose speed and pace and power obviously do certainly help Arsenal in the counter-attacks that we have. But I think that Mudryk's technical ability, his crossing, the close control he has, the ability to take players on, his creativity, his directness, all of those skills that he possesses, I still think would certainly help Arsenal. There is a compilation. I know I've mentioned it on the channel before. I can't find it. It's just one of those where someone retweets it onto your timeline. But someone specifically did a compilation video of him working against low blocks and how he still breaks down opposition teams. You have to remember that as Shakhtar Donetsk are the most competitive side in the Ukrainian league, with, of course, Dynamo Kiev, they have come up against a lot of teams that do sit back, that do defend deep, because they're coming up against a much bigger team in Shakhtar. And yet he still does well in the Ukrainian league. So that should encourage you to think that he can, of course, transition his ability to play for Shakhtar to Arsenal, because they're not always playing counter-attacking football. But obviously, a lot of the time they play in the Champions League, they're coming up against bigger teams that they are then able to play on the counter-attack. So I think there are benefits and drawbacks, but yes, I do think he can transition to the Arsenal team fairly comfortably. Okay, let's... oh, by the way, I did manage to get my giant bottle, as you can see. Ridiculously big, but 2 litres. Can't complain about that. Let's go to... It's also one of those that... And this is going to sound horrible for those listening on audio. I can't believe I'm going to say this. You have to suck really hard to get the water out. I don't know why. It's not flowing comfortably. So it's working your jaw muscles at the same time. How have I said that on a live podcast? Philip Crewston says, would you prefer in January a striker that can cover on the wing or wingers who can cover at striker? I think the latter. I think I lean more towards a more comfortable wide player who can play more centrally. I think we've got Jesus and Nketiah who are more specific strikers, and then you've got the wide players. But really, we've got Saka and Martinelli, and then we've got Smith Rowe behind them, who's not really an out-and-out winger. So I think we actually need the benefit of having a more senior, competitive level wide player who can also cover in the middle. Tom Height says, Tielemans is a waste of money. I'd love to know your reasons as to why, Tom. Let us know in the chat box with some explanations as to why Tielemans is a waste of money. I will look out for your next response. Carl says, Tom, you don't believe in 10 out of 10s. No, Carl, I don't believe in 10 out of 10s for other people. DR says, thoughts on the Ronaldo interview, hilarious or hilarious? I'm going to go with hilarious. It is funny. And I also loved seeing the video of him kind of shaking hands with Bruno Fernandes in the Portuguese national side. That was also hilarious. So yeah, there's some very funny things going on at Man United because of Ronaldo, and I'm very happy that it's going down. Dom says, any left-footed centre-backs that we should be keeping an eye on during the World Cup? Great question. And honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not sure I can give you an answer. Is Badiashile left-footed? Quick check on his profile. Is he left-footed? He is left-footed. So, yes, I'm going to go for Benoit Badiashile. I think he is the guy that you should be looking at as a potential left-footer to keep your eye on during the tournament for France. There's rumours that he may be playing in a back three with Varane and Saliba. So maybe it's him. And, of course, playing with Saliba, that chemistry, who knows? Could he be someone that we look to in the future? James says, with a lot of focus on January's incomings for you, do you think Arsenal will conduct any outgoing business? Good question, because we've not really talked about that. Yes, I think there would be potential for some outgoing business. I think Marquinhos could leave on loan. If a team comes in for Cedric, Arsenal may be tempted to take some money for him if they indeed do get a good rating for him. I think you'll see potentially some more youth players go out on loan. Maybe there was offers, or there could be offers for Ethan Nwaneri, Kion Edwards, Kido Taylor-Ha. There are other youngsters, Catalan Kurja, Matt Smith. I think a lot of youth players could potentially leave in January. We may recall some loan players like Omar Rekic, who has not been doing too great, whilst with Sparta Rotterdam hasn't been given the opportunities, and then might be loaned out again. So I think loans is going to be big. The only permanent exit I can really see is Cedric, maybe Nelson if the club wants to cash in and can sign a wide player. If not too many permanent outgoings, mainly loans, I think is what you'll see regarding the potential outings from the squad. Let's go to Esmond, who says, have you seen how fast this guy is? And he can dribble. And can he dribble not like Saka? I don't know what that means, not like Saka, but he certainly can dribble very fast in terms of how rapid he is. Good acceleration, good close control. Mohammed says, am I the only one who thinks that we can really benefit from having at least one centre-back DM centre-mid with long passing capabilities? I think we already benefit from some long passes. I think Saliba and Ben White are really good at passing long from deep. Ben White played a couple of great passes against Wolves from deep into Bukayo Saka, and I think there was one into either Jesus or Ødegaard. There was definitely two in the game. But White really did produce a couple of fantastic long balls during the fixture. So we do have some good long passes from deep. Xhaka, I think, can pass well long from deep, but doesn't often choose to. It's a strategy that we have employed more on our right-hand side. When I've been at the games, Ben White to Saka has been a very, very common long ball in behind that we're starting to see more and more often. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I've also seen Rob Holding do it in the Europa League game. So it's definitely done by design rather than just being off the back of the international. I'm now just scrolling down to the bottom comments. Anyway, Martin says, trust me, Tom, you won't be drinking water like that when you get to my age. You'd be permanently in the loo with that. Yeah, I can imagine. It's going to go straight through people. To be fair, when I was teaching, before I started this new job, I was going through at least 3 litre bottles throughout the day, and it was constantly in between lessons, just running down the stairs, back up the stairs to the next lesson, because I was just drinking so much water. Just go straight through. How are we talking about this? NVR says, Tom, can you explain the Doku hype? He's literally Adama Traore, but worse. Doku as in the Belgian winger. Let me have a quick check on the update because I've not really seen Jeremy Doku of Rennes. Right winger, 20 years of age. 8 games, 2 in the Europa League as well, and no goals or assists this season. Not really played. I mean, he was being very highly rated. He has had a muscle injury, which has kept him out for some of the season, and he wasn't in the squad for a few of the games as well. Yeah, his stock seems to have fallen is probably the best way of describing Jeremy Doku at the moment. I don't even know if he's been selected for the Belgian national side, in fairness, either. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I think I had ESPN. I had all of the World Cup teams. I did. So let's have a quick look. Belgium, has he been selected? Let's find Belgium. I should just search instead of scrolling all the way down, but I'm committed now. Here we go. Forwards, Lukaku, Batshuayi, Openda, De Ketelaere, Hazard, Jeremy Doku, Dries Mertens and Trossard. So, yeah, Doku is going to the World Cup with Belgium, despite not having too many good games at all, it seems, this season. Let's go to Paul, who says, if Tomiyasu and Smith Rowe are back in January, how many players will we bring in during the next transfer window? And is there a, quote, must buy? I think that we still will go into the market, and I think Arsenal are intending on, taking advantage, certainly, of the situation that they find themselves in. The feeling I certainly get, and from when I've spoken to people, is that they feel as though Arsenal will certainly use the market to strengthen, to reinforce. I think a midfielder is certainly on their radar, as is a forward player. And so I lean towards it being 2 players. I am planning on doing a players that Arsenal can sign in January video for you guys in the coming couple of weeks. So I look forward to bringing you that. But yes, there is certainly an indication that we will go in for some of those. Robert says, Tom, I think we all like Mudryk and Danilo as good young players, but should Arsenal now be looking for players at a higher level given our position? It depends what you define as higher level, doesn't it? It depends how you feel as though Danilo and Mudryk fit into that. It also depends on how accessible those types of players are in the January window, which is typically not that often. And when they are, they're very, very expensive. The only available players I see of that really genuinely high level are, let's say, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, which if you're going to sign is going to be 70, 80 million euros. It's going to be very expensive. I would love to see him at Arsenal, don't get me wrong, but can I see Arsenal paying that much? That said, Mudryk is also a very expensive young player. We're going to have to spend big to try and get him as well, unless we can get a good structured deal that suits Arsenal. It's tough. I don't genuinely think there is that many elite level players available in January, but I do think there are players that can certainly have the potential to reach that elite level that you could sign in January, like Danilo, like Mudryk. I would love it if it was those 2. If Arsenal can add Mudryk and Danilo to their team in January, I think that's a great bit of business done by the club, to be honest. I don't think I could be really critical of anything else not happening if we manage to get those 2 through the door. Carl says, regarding MM's effectiveness, Mudryk being that, against the low block, I feel we are assessing teams rather than match duration. The low block teams come forward more when they are behind in the match. And Arsenal have come up against teams that have defended deeper, as Carl points out. Wolves defended quite deep, hit on the counter, but we defended well, got away with a few errors, sure, but then we hit them when we needed to, and we scored, and we took the chances when they came to us, other than Jesus, of course. So we are still getting chances and opportunities. It's not like when you come up against a low block that you never get any joy. If you think about it, if you're honest with yourself about the low block, if you go into the stats of a game in which a team have played against a low block, how many shots do a team get when playing against a side with a low block? The answer is loads. They still get loads of opportunities. It's just about how the quality of those shots, the higher, the amount of XG, I suppose, those shots accumulate and more. But I still think there's great opportunities. A low block should not be a reason to not sign a player. So I certainly think they can be coached and improved to beat teams that play a low block. And playing in a side like Arsenal, which is full of creative talents like Saka, who's got the second most assists in the Premier League, and Ødegaard, who should have far more assists than he does if Jesus had his shooting boots on. I think we've got lots of creative talent. Xhaka, I think, is producing some fantastic creative passes. I think we're even seeing some creation from the fullbacks. Zinchenko, from Ben White even as well on that right-hand side. And of course, Martinelli is being a bit more creative too. So I do think, and Jesus as well. So I think that Mudryk actually would suit Arsenal's team, even if we were coming up against low blocks more often. And there's going to be plenty of games where I think Mudryk against Liverpool, against City, against Spurs, against Man United, I think having that speed and pace and power is going to be really strong and useful in those games as well. It's a question that why would you go and sign Luis Diaz if you're Liverpool? He played often for a Porto side that dominated the Portuguese league and would go up against teams playing low blocks. And when Liverpool played against teams when he first arrived, they were still playing low blocks against Liverpool. And yet Diaz became a very successful Premier League player very quickly. So I do think that there is certainly an argument to compare Diaz's move to Liverpool and Mudryk's potential move to Arsenal and how both can be very influential for both teams. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Did we get a response from Tomite from earlier on in the chat box? If there was, I can't see it. Esmond says, Saka has been poor/average in his dribbling. He cannot win 1v1s most of the time. He needs to improve his shooting, aiming. He was way better last 2 to 3 years. He looks like he's declining. Sorry? Saka, the guy with the second most assists in the Premier League right now. Saka, the guy who's probably better than Salah this season, I would say, quite comfortably better than Salah this season. I'm trying to think of a right winger in the Premier League that I would swap Bukayo Saka for, and I'll be very honest, I'm struggling. Just have a quick check of his FB ref statistics. Looking at his FB ref stats, he sits in for dribbles 1.55 per 90. That said, he gets fouled ridiculously highly. Progressive passes is in the 79th percentile for. I don't really see the argument, Esmond. Saka isn't declining at all. He's on track for his best season at the club so far with the goals and assists that he so far has this campaign. That doesn't make any sense. Matty Gunner says, hi, Tom. Thoughts on Moises Caicedo of Brighton as competition for Partey? The guy's really good. He is really good, but I wouldn't say he's competition for Partey. Moises Caicedo does tend to play in that kind of 8 role rather than the deeper. And I know that all midfielders are 8s that just specialise, but I wouldn't say Caicedo is the Partey guy. I'd say he's the Xhaka guy. I think you could play Caicedo with Partey in a very strong midfield, actually. Yomi says, morning, Tom. Pick one. Rodrigo from Leeds, Neto from Wolves, Mudryk from Shakhtar, Diaby from Leverkusen, Gakpo from PSV, or Asensio from Real Madrid. These are my options. I would choose Mudryk, closely followed by Gakpo. Very, very closely. I'm at the moment leaning towards Mudryk. But yeah, and then followed by Diaby. I wouldn't put Rodrigo in that list for me at all. Let's go to DS Reviews. He says, I want us to go into the transfer window this January, but looking at last year, I also fear Mykhaylo won't sign anybody if they don't find the right fit. This is a good discussion point, actually, because the argument that Arsenal won't sign anybody unless they find the right fit, we're all sitting here and going, oh, go and sign Mudryk, go and sign this guy, go and sign this guy. But I don't mind the club being, cautious about transfers because for a long, long time, Arsenal have been too frivolous, they have been too rushed, and they have made the wrong choices over and over again in the market that led us to 8th place, back to back. And that Arteta had to build and rebuild from scratch all of the team, effectively. You look at this side now, there's not many players that are from the era before him. William Saliba didn't even play for Arsenal before Mikel Arteta came in as manager. You've got Zinchenko's coming to replace one of the only players that was left in the starting 11 that wasn't signed by Mikel Arteta. You can make an entire backline of players now that were signed by players under Arteta in Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel, and Zinchenko. Thomas Partey was brought in by him. Xhaka, he's turned the career of Xhaka around completely. You look at the front three, Jesus is that kind of the glue that I think holds the whole thing together. And he's developed through into their best years. Saka, who, by the way, is not declining, and Martinelli as well. All of these things, I think, all lean towards Arteta's rebuild going through a process of strict and appropriate investments that ultimately have seen us become the side that is currently sitting top of the table. So I don't have too much of a problem regarding us being a little bit more cautious with transfers and making sure that we sign the right player for the right amount of money, because ultimately we have fallen away in the past by making the wrong decisions. You shouldn't be fearful of what happened last January. Yes, we should have signed someone. We should have probably brought in a forward. But who that was is a real difficult one, because at the time I was saying, let's go out and sign Val Weghorst on a 6-month loan. Let's go and sign Artur Cabral from Fiorentina, I think it was. No, Basel, sorry. He moved, didn't he, for Fiorentina. Let's go and sign, I don't know, who else were we talking about back then? Some other players, I'm sure. And let's be real, Wout Weghorst has done nothing. Artur Cabral has done nothing. I hold my hands up. I was very wrong on that one. And there's certainly, I'm going to be wrong more about players. We're human. We're wrong. It's what it's just what we are. We're wrong often and frequently. So what we think at the time as a good move might not necessarily prove to be a good move in the future. Emi Buendia. Do you remember how upset I got about Emi Buendia? I'm not upset that we didn't get Emi Buendia anymore. I'm really not. So I think that we need to be certainly still measured. I still think we need to be accurate with our signings. But yes, I would be disappointed if we didn't make any signings in January, because I think you can go and get Mudryk if you intend on investing heavily. I think you can go and get a player like Danilo if you plan on investing. It's clear that we're interested in these players. I think we'll probably wait for Tielemans. I don't think we'd sign Tielemans in January. I don't think we need to sign Tielemans in January. I think we can wait until the summer and get him on a free. And do that much simpler for Arsenal. Yes, he might cost a bit more in terms of wages, but he is in his mid-20s. He is a Premier League level player, and so he is going to cost you 6 figures a week to bring him in. He won't be upwards of 200. I don't think he'd be upwards of 150. I think we can get him for the £100,000 per week, kind of around that figure mark. I think that would be a fine deal for us to do for Tielemans. But yeah, I do want us to be still careful in the market. I do still want us to be accurate and strategic with our business, because that's what's led us to be top of the table. And yes, it can be frustrating when we don't sign players, but I'd rather we were careful and accurate than rash and inaccurate with our signings. James says, I love that Arsenal don't have a single focal player. It has developed our team beautifully, and the key is to our consistency. So surprised Man City signed a single focal point like Haaland. It's a good argument. Would I have signed Haaland? I think I would have done. I think Haaland's goals would have been absolutely invaluable to us. And I think we would have potentially more goals with Haaland in the team. But there's always this strong argument of, and I really want to give the person credit who said it in the chat box. I have a feeling it might have been Amira, but it might have been someone else that used the term of bottlenecking a team, because Haaland and Ronaldo are certainly forwards that I think that bottleneck sides. And what you mean by that is, if I haven't got a bottle that really shows it in here, I suppose I'll use this one. But with the bottle being curved at the top, all of your attacks are kind of funneled towards that top end. And so because of that, if the striker's not on his game, you are going to fall away. Like we saw against Brentford, Haaland wasn't really able to do what he would usually do. And there wasn't then the goals from elsewhere. Foden has been scoring. De Bruyne has been scoring. But beyond that, they haven't been getting the same goals from Mahrez or Grealish, who hasn't really been scoring anyway since moving to Man City. Bernardo Silva, hasn't necessarily been scoring as much as maybe he might do. So I think they have bottlenecked their team. And I think, James, you raise a good point about how collaborative Jesus is and how much that helps Odegaard get 6 goals. Saka get 6 goals. Saka get 5 goals. Martinelli get 5 goals. And Jesus himself get 5 goals. Xhaka get 4 goals. Partey get 2 or 3 goals. 3, I think. Gabriel got a couple of goals. We're scoring from beyond just the forward line as well, which is important to a team that wants to win titles. Vida says the channel is called... Oh, okay. So we're talking about Mudryk again. If you want to go and watch some videos about Mudryk, certainly go and do that. Let's go to... Esme says, Saka dribbles completed 58%. I'm curious to see kind of what other wingers in the Premier League and what their dribbles completed stats are. We could do that, I guess. If we go to FBref, let's have a look at dribbles completed on... I like doing these live because sometimes it proves me wrong very quickly, and I don't mind being proven wrong live on air. It's good. Chat box, let's play a quick game. Who should we compare Saka's dribbled completed stats? Sacks. Who should we compare Saka's stats with in terms of wingers and dribbles completed? Let me share my screen with you guys, and you can do this. It's a fun thing. I like it. It's really sad, but I actually quite enjoy jumping onto FBref and comparing players. So let's do Mohamed Salah, because obviously, pinnacle of Premier League wingers. Let's have a quick look at him. We want to go to age 30 and Liverpool. Who else? Let's jump over to the chat. Sterling. It's a good shout. Let's have a look at Sterling. Sterling, Raheem Sterling. This is FBref. If you don't use the website, I recommend you doing it. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. It's just quite a good service to do this stuff with. Mitoma. Mitoma is a great shout. I really like him. A player I really do like to watch is Kaoru Mitoma. He's going to be at the World Cup, one to watch with Japan. That is for sure. I genuinely think maybe one for Arsenal to keep an eye on in the future. Kulusevski's a good shout. To be fair, I hate Spurs, but I do appreciate Kulusevski. He's been very, very good for Spurs. So that's probably a good option for us as well. And let's get one more. Almiron, that's a great shout. He's having a fantastic season for Newcastle. Let's have a look at Miguel Almiron. Let's share that. Okay, so get results. Let's compare all of these players together. We want to go down to possession. And we want to go down to successful dribbles per 90. So successful dribbles per 90. Saka is third on that list. Mitoma is at the top in terms of successful dribbles. 2.57 per 90. That's excellent. Dejan Kulusevski, 1.76. Bukayo Saka, 1.54. Then Salah, 1.17. Sterling, 1.04. Miguel Almiron, the formed player this season, 1.01. Success rate. Bukayo Saka, not as high as you thought, 36.4%, 56.3% is Mitoma, 33.3% is Kulusevski, Mohamed Salah, 30.8%, Raheem Sterling, 26.8%, and Miguel Almiron. So if we have a quick look at success rate, Bukayo Saka actually, ironically, comes out second on this list. I probably should zoom in so you guys can see this a bit better. There we go. So if you have a look at this list here, FBref, very, very good indeed in terms of where he compares. Let's change some of these because I know some of you guys will probably want some other players compared. So let's change it again. We know he finishes second in terms of this list, only behind, was it Mitoma? So we'll keep Mitoma on the list. Let's get rid of Saka. Let's get rid of Sterling. This is a really interesting watch for you. I've got my day off today, so I don't mind going a bit longer on these. Let's get some more names in, people. Who else do you want to see? Saint-Maximin, that's a great one. Really top-level dribbler is Saint-Maximin. Let's have a quick look at that. Let's go 2023 Newcastle. Quick check back on this. Phil Foden. People are saying Phil Foden. Let's have a quick look at his statistics this season. Phil Foden, quick check. Man City this year. Player number 5. Zaha, good shout. Let's go for Zaha as well. Wilfried Zaha. Have a quick check on his ones. Are you enjoying this? Is this type of the content that you enjoy? If you are, do drop a like on the video. This isn't what we usually do. Martinelli, that's a good shout. Let's have a quick check with one of our better, what we consider to be one of our better dribblers. Okay, Martinelli. Is that the right Martinelli? Yes. Is there more than one Martinelli? Yes, there is, because we were linked to him. He plays in Brazil, actually. Right, get results. Come on. Don't keep the people waiting, please, FBref. We haven't got time for this. Here we go. Okay, possession. Let's go down. Possession, toggle those. Success. Wow. So here we go. So Bukayo Saka is actually bottom of this list. Martinelli, Saint-Maximin, Phil Foden, Zaha coming out better. So Zaha, 38.5%. Phil Foden, 38.5%. So just 2% higher than Bukayo Saka. Then we have your big dribblers. Martinelli, 51.9%. Saint-Maximin, 50%. Kiro Mitoma, 56.3%. So what do we learn from this? So we've learned from this, I think, that obviously maybe we are underestimating Bukayo Saka's dribbling ability in comparison to, say, the likes of Sterling. Who else did we look at previously? Kulusevski, Salah, and there was one other one as well who's now escaped my mind. Mudryk, yeah, we haven't looked at Mudryk, have we? I suppose we should look at him. Just to finish off this point, though, but obviously there are other players that we have to consider in this. Wilfried Zaha is dribbling more successfully at Crystal Palace. Phil Foden at City. Only just 2% higher, though, than Bukayo Saka. And then you've got your more well-known dribblers like Saint-Maximin, like Martinelli in your 50s and your Mitomas as well. If we have a quick look at defensive actions, I'm curious about pressures and how important pressures are. Do we have pressures for defensive actions? I'm sure that we used to have pressures per 90. I'm struggling to find them, though. I thought we used to have pressures per 90 on FBref, but I can't find them. That's a shame, because it was a really good statistic. I don't seem to have them. That's annoying. Anyway, recoveries per 90. Let's have a quick check on recoveries. Bukayo Saka comes out 3.92 per 90. Looking forward to possession stats again. Touches in the attacking third. Bukayo Saka comes out third highest. There's usually quite good touches. A number of times a player touched the ball. He's on the ball third highest amount of times in this list as well. Okay, we're getting to less exciting stuff now. So I'm going to change this just so we can have a quick look at Mudryk. I just want to see how Mudryk rates on this list. We'll get rid of Saint-Maximin. Let's go Mudryk. And we might not have the stats because FBref doesn't usually have the statistics for some of the more obscure leagues out there with respect to them. No, we don't. Annoyingly, we don't have the possession stats. So sorry, we can't do Mudryk. Well, that's one of the downsides of FBref. We only really have statistics for the top 5 leagues. What I could do is have a quick look on Scout though, but Scout does use different metrics for players usually. What I'll do is I'll just go onto Scout for you and we'll check Bukayo Saka's stats. Let's have a quick go on to Scout for you. We'll check what Bukayo Saka's dribbling stats are on Scout, which are a bit different to FBref. Different outlets use different data collection tools. So let's have a quick check. Go to all seasons. Why can't I do this season, please? For some reason, it's being weird and not letting me do all seasons. So that's frustrating. All right, we'll go to Mudryk. See, sometimes Scout's a little bit temperamental. That's annoying. For those listening on audio platforms, I do apologize. This isn't the most audibly fantastic exercise because you can't see this. And if you want to see what I'm looking at, hop over to YouTube again after you've listened to this, and you'll be able to see what I'm looking at. Can I do it? Yes, I can. Okay, so if we have a quick look in the Champions League and Ukrainian League, dribbles successful, 66.1% for Mudryk on here. Annoyingly, I can't check how Saka's relates, but 66.1% successful dribbles. This one here, 7.51 dribbles per 90. Really impressive from Mudryk, actually. Saka. Can I, if I reload Saka's, will it show it now? Sometimes you have to do click back on it. Stats. Come on, please give me the statistics. Please. Yes, there we go. Okay. Premier League, Europa League, and that's it. So this season, dribbles 53.4%. So it says it's higher than FBref. As I say, different outlets use different statistics. That's why whenever you see kind of different websites using statistics to kind of read in, when you see different statistics used on websites, it depends where they've got them from. Different data collections use different stuff. No, I can't compare them directly, annoyingly, Terry, on Scout. Or if you can, I've not worked out yet how to do it. So I suppose we should probably check Martinelli's dribbling stats on here. So what was Saka? 53.4%. Remember that number, people. 53.4%. Let's just check Martinelli's dribbling statistics on Scout and how they compare. When I do my tactical breakdowns, I usually do use Scout for the stats. But it just goes to show how different websites can be by using different ones as to what their accurate statistics models are. So according to this, and this is quite interesting, and I'll share my screen quickly. According to Scout, Martinelli has a lower dribble success rate than Saka. Now, when we used FBref, their statistical model said that Saka was like 15% lower than Martinelli, but actually using Scout says that the dribble success rate is lower than Saka's. This is what I mean. It's so hard to use statistics sometimes. Really, really difficult because different websites use different data collection models, and it's so hard to try and get an accurate reading and comparison between them. So it's always good to look at different models and different kind of websites to get a feel for it, because some might say it is what it is, and some might, Matt G, sell them both. Not good enough. So there you go. I think what we can conclude from this is that certainly the Saka is declining theory is a load of twaddle. That's what you go. So there you go. Anyway, I think we've gone on for 43 minutes now. There's over 900 of you watching. Wow, that's mad. Considering there was 800 watching when I started the stats bit, and now there's more than 900 views. Clearly, you've enjoyed this statistical look at it. So there you go. We've looked into it in depth. Can't say that I don't do the in-depth detail on a live show. I don't mind talking you through it if need be. I'm actually might listen back to the audio of this just to see how ridiculous it sounds on audio-only platforms, because I reckon it's pretty horrific. So if you are listening to this on audio only, I do apologise that there was no visual cues for you. But if you do want to see all the statistics that we just looked at on the morning show, then hop over to YouTube and you can find them there. Thank you, everybody that's been listening. Thank you, everybody that's been tuning in this morning. Really appreciate your time. I don't think I'm going to get time. To be fair, I might get time to do a show this afternoon. I might do a phone-in show. I might. It is my day off and the missus' day off, and I'm in Manchester tomorrow and the day after at the Football Content Awards. I might do a phone-in show today. If you want to join us for our phone-in show, I will leave the time I'm going to do it on Twitter, probably mid-afternoon-ish, probably 4 or 5-ish this afternoon. We might do a phone-in show. So, and we'll talk about the season so far and how people feel about things. So, yeah, get involved if you want to. But I'll leave all the details of that on Twitter and Instagram as well. So if you follow us on Twitter at the Gooner Talk TV, if you follow us on Instagram at the Gooner Talk, you'll be able to find the information there. Make sure you drop a like on the video. Really appreciate it. Oh, there was a super chat that I missed. Aya, looking at Arteta's signings so far, would you be surprised if we got Mitoma instead of Mudryk? Yes, I would. I don't think Mitoma is on Arsenal's radar at the moment. So, yeah, I would be pretty surprised if we signed Mitoma. But I like the guy. One to add to your list, people. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I will see you a little bit later on this afternoon. I will see you tomorrow morning. And then I'm off to Manchester for the Football Content Awards on Wednesday. So that should be a lot of fun. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy it. And as always, up the Arsenal.